take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Welcome to Life in Red.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 21 of the Life in Red podcast. And my guest today, I think, is one of the most formidable people in Ottawa, if not Canada, the world, the great Mallory Rowan. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. That's a lot to live up to.
Right? But that's I say that actually truthfully because for anyone who follows you on Instagram or any of your business ventures, like, to not put it in like too layman terms, like it's like hashtag goals. If I'm gonna put it like millennial.
Yeah, speaking our language.
Like you took something and you had a vision, and I think you did what so many people want to do with their lives. Like a lot of people talk about what they want to do, but
Right.
you did what you want to do.
Right.
To give some context, I'll let you describe your title because you have many different business ventures. But what exactly do you do for a living?
Yeah, so I'm one of the founders of an apparel company called LVD Fitness. It stands for Lift, Visualize, Dominate. And we created it to kind of merge the world of socially conscious apparel with fitness apparel. We noticed a lot of athletes were into brands like Tentree or Tom Shoes, and we wanted to bring that to the fitness community. So we created a give back model, and we worked with WaterAid Canada to provide 1 month of clean water to someone in a developing country for every item we sell. And that was because as athletes, like, we use water in everything we do, right? We're drinking it, we're sweating out all the time, we have our protein shakes, and it's just crazy that other people don't have basic access. So that was kind of the inspiration behind that, and we've grown it mostly online. We started out in the powerlifting fitness niche, and we've just kind of grown from there into anyone really who cares about health and fitness and kind of creating their own standard. So that was my first venture that I started at the end of university, and since then we've taken the lessons we've learned there, and we're expanding and doing some marketing clients. So I started a marketing agency where we work with different companies that are passionate about their brand and help give them a better voice online.
Yeah. I know I've talked about this with a couple guests, but the fitness industry it's what, coming from someone who's not in it, it was interesting to me that there's so much I don't know what the word is. It's not like bias, but there's a lot of standards, even with people who aren't necessarily in like the competitions, in the, like what you said, powerlifting or CrossFit. Like, you see those people on Instagram and like, okay, those are the gym people. But then even like standard people going to the gym, like there's a lot, not discrimination, but like, it's hard. It's hard for a lot of people. Was that part of you? I know you said like being comfortable and looking at that apparel, but is that like the big shirts for the bigger people? Like, do you also kind of cater to people who maybe don't fit that standard gym mold?
Yeah, definitely. Especially since we started in powerlifting. Powerlifting is a really cool sport because it empowers people not for what they look like, but what their body can actually do. And for a lot of women especially, it's a really great sport to get into because a lot of us go to the gym to lose weight, get toned, so to speak. And then once you start powerlifting, you realize what your body can actually do. And when you start focusing on that, the other things just kind of come along with it. But we definitely, in the sport of powerlifting, we'll do from like 2 extra small to 4XL. And something that a lot of people have noticed with us as well is that we use all sizes in our actual content. And it was always funny when that got pointed out to us because we were just using our customers for photo shoots because we thought it was really fun. We had a lot of support in Ottawa, so we would just post and say like, hey, we're doing a shoot this weekend. Anyone who's interested, DM us, because we didn't want that supermodel look because that's not who we were. So yeah, it's definitely something that just kind of happens naturally when you're actually working to support a community. And I think that's really important too, because I think a lot of us, like, going to the gym is a very insecure place to be. And you don't know, like, are people looking at you because they like your shirt or because you're doing an exercise wrong? And we tend to go always towards the negatives with a lot of that self-doubt already existing.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of, I'm not going to name the brands, but like even myself, like I don't even fit into most of like the tight pants, and I'm just like, oh yeah, this isn't good. Yeah. So I guess following your journey on Instagram, so there was a post that stood out to me as I was refreshing myself on as you as a guest, that you started before all this. You said you're a competitive dancer.
Yep.
And I guess there was a point where you kind of were at a weight or a body composition that you weren't happy with. Was it powerlifting that, like, was it powerlifting? Was it was it one day you just looked in the mirror that was like, I need to make a change? Was it an inspirational podcast, a video, somebody in your life?
Yeah.
What was that point where you're just like, no, Mallory's going to change who she is?
Yeah. That's a great question. Obviously, growing up in like a competitive dance space, there's a lot of body image there, right? Like, I'll look back at photos now and I'm like, wow, I was so skinny. But at the time, I was like the bigger girl, like one of them, right? And it didn't mean I was super chubby. It just meant compared to the very classic dancer, I was bigger. I was born more muscular. I was always leaning that way, you know? And so I think that was something that was kind of always there. And because I danced so much with competition season, like, you're really every spare waking minute you are at the studio. So I was kind of aware of that in high school, that like I was going to have to step up and do other things as dance started to phase out of my life moving into university. So I did some stuff, like I did pole fitness for a while. I always knew that I wanted to be fit, and I think I was also aware that I had to be fit in one way. Some people, you know, they can like eat all the junk food and they're really annoying because they just never gain weight. Like, I knew that wasn't me.
Yeah, it's not me either.
Exactly. So there's a little bit of just that awareness of like, if I just stop dance one day, I'm going to explode, like, quite literally. So I think with the pole fitness, that was my first kind of interaction of combining like art with more strength, because obviously dance has a lot of strength, but it is very like art form based, and the strength is just kind of coming with it without you realizing. And then in pole fitness, there's a lot more like grabbing the pole and like you got to pull yourself up, and similar to like a rope climb. And so I started going to the gym to help with that. And then as I started to go to the gym more, I started to notice my body changing. And then I think it was kind of once I started to get into that, when I went to do some progress photos, I was just like, wow, I really am like a little bit heavier than I used to be. And I definitely believe that I could do some things to change that, which is a really cool experience. Because then when you look back, it's kind of crazy to think, because I know for myself, like, I can dress well to hide those parts. So it's hard. You don't get a lot of photos if you're not taking progress photos to see that side of it, which is why I always say a lot of people would never believe me that I was that size, because I could dress for it, right? And I am naturally bigger in the bottom half, and like that is heavier than most people being bigger in the top half. But yeah, I don't know if there was a set moment. I think it was definitely like a smooth transition and something I've always been aware of, but there was definitely a shift from it being a negative thing to more of like an empowering and positive thing that I wanted to do, as opposed to having to do it.
Yeah. I know for me, it was, I did the similar thing. Like, I was playing hockey forever, so I was fit. I was good. And then I went to college and stopped playing. And then you see yourself after 2 years of college
drinking
eating and drinking and partying. And I'm like, oh my, what happened? Yeah. The pants wouldn't fit and everything. So, one of the great things too, though, so you've made some pretty incredible transformations with yourself. You're growing with the business, but one of the most appreciative things, I think, at least for me as a follower, is the honesty, and that you are not that person who's like, you see, like I said at the beginning, like people see you as like this person who's like, she's accomplishing everything, but you are not afraid to talk about what you're struggling with, the dark days.
Totally.
People are like, oh, look, Mallory's working out. That's great. But then you're like, I actually hate this.
Yeah.
Where do you find the motivation to, one, post that type of stuff with people and be that open about yourself? So it's the world of the internet, and with especially trolls and men, that they're going to find that stuff and try to poke it at you. So one, being that, and two, when you're actually there at the gym, how do you find that motivation to overcome what you don't want to do?
Yeah, so, starting with the online space, it's funny because usually, when you get like 1,000 compliments, they say it takes one insult to undo it. But for some reason online, I kind of find it the opposite. If I get that one message from one person where the post like really changed how they saw themselves or made them feel better because they didn't realize other people were going through the same thing, that's what really motivates me. And I kind of stumbled into it because a few of my friends, they actually made me post my lifting videos on Instagram. Like, I did not do Instagram before. I was like, no, it's kind of stupid. Like, Facebook's the same as Instagram in the early days, right?
Yeah,
it was like, why would I just repost the photo there? But once I started posting my lifting, and then I would, open up about some mindset stuff, and then I would get this crazy response, and I didn't realize that other people didn't know that other people felt that way. Like, I think I've always been very self-aware and maybe a bit more emotionally intelligent, if you will. So I knew that was something that a lot of people struggle with, but other people were living in these little bubbles where they thought they were the only one doubting themselves that way. So honestly, just opening up about it, that's what really motivates me. And every time I do, I'll get a DM about somebody where it's like, I've taken this big stress off their shoulders. So that's always what really pushes me on that side of it. And then in the gym, honestly, I think the best thing you can do is get confident in just knowing what you're doing. Because I think that's where a lot of people get self-conscious. Like, if they're squatting and somebody's watching, at least for women, they often assume they're doing it wrong, right? Or they're being judged because they're doing it a little weird or different, or they're not lifting enough, or they're lifting too much. So I think just being able to equip yourself with the knowledge, in the gym, whether that's watching people's YouTube videos, following some fitness people, getting a coach, I think that's really, really helpful, because I know, like, if someone's staring at me at the gym, it's probably because he's impressed that I'm lifting decent weight, and I don't find that offensive because it is impressive to a lot of guys, right? And I'm also confident that I am squatting right? So if somebody's looking at me, I'm really not worried about what they're thinking, and I think that's the biggest difference. And that's actually, when we were starting LVD, that was my original idea, was like, how can I get women to just feel more confident in the gym? So that's something that I've kind of brought back into my life and trying to be helping people with.
Okay. I think that's one of the biggest things for anybody trying to make a change in their life, especially with the gym. It's finding a way to overcome that doubt. It's easy to say when, you can, once you start getting there and you start being able to pull the weight, but like, do you have advice for people? And this was always one of my biggest struggles when I was starting. And I think it's everybody, because anyone can go to the gym.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
Yeah. You can get there.
it's to maintain it and keep going. And how do you find that motivation? So, if people are asking you, hey, Mallory, like, I'm going to the gym and I've been going for a week now and I don't really want to go to, like, how do you like keep going? Where does that motivation come from? Do you have any like tips or steps that you go through to help?
Yeah, I definitely think the first thing is get a buddy. Like, if it's working out in person, or even if it's an accountability buddy, like, say you have a friend in Toronto and you both want to get to the gym, like, hold each other accountable, text each other when you're going to the gym, because then like, oh, if I don't text so-and-so today, they're going to know I didn't go, and like, I really should be going. So I definitely think getting a buddy, and then if you can train with a buddy, it's even better, because at the end of the day, if you're doing something stupid, then at least you're both doing it, right? And it's that little bit of a comfort shield where you can just be a little bit more in your space and not pay attention to what other people are doing, because you're talking with your friend, you're both doing it together. So that's definitely really, really helpful. I think just having that support system. So actually, I guess maybe 8 weeks ago now, I did a free 6-week training program.
That's right, yeah.
That I just opened up, and I found that really interesting, because a lot of people were kind of like me, where they had competed in a sport like powerlifting and phased out of that, and then we're kind of losing that motivation to go to the gym. I often can justify doing my business stuff instead, but then when I go to the gym, it's actually really healthy for me, more mentally even than physically. So finding people with those like-minded situations and kind of just relying on each other. And if you don't have that, I think the biggest thing is remembering that it is a choice. I actually did a post about this the other day, and that was one that really resonated with people. It was like, at the end of the day, how privileged are we to complain about going to the gym, right? So I find there's this immediate shift where you decide, you make this really positive choice to start going to the gym to get more healthy. And then very quickly, maybe after a week in, you're treating it like it's a punishment, like, oh, I have to go to the gym. It's like, no, you made this choice, and like, you're doing it for the better, and it makes you feel good when you go. So just really keeping that in mind, that at the end of the day, like, if that's your biggest thing, is you're a little intimidated by the gym, just go and just learn to enjoy it.
Do you find any positive effects not just physically, but mentally going to the gym. I know, as people who listen know, I'm very involved with the mental health community. And that's something I stress. I don't go to get jacked
totally,
or ripped. I literally just go for the brain, and everything else is just kind of nice that comes along with it. Was there a time when maybe you were like struggling, or just before you made this transition into now? Are there days where you're like maybe self-doubt or feeling low or experiencing something bigger that going to the gym like solves? Does it have that big of an effect of
Yeah, definitely. Like, I will purposely schedule my gym sessions in my day where I know I'm going to need that brain break. Or sometimes if, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I'll actually save it for the evening, because I know that if I go midday, I'm not really going to be in it. And I know that going in the evening will just help me unwind. And I do think it's a really powerful tool to be able to kind of step out of what you're doing. I like to try to stay off Instagram, off my emails, off my texts if I can in the gym, and just actually be in that moment. And I think that's really powerful, because we don't do that at all, really.
It's a big thing. Anytime I drive by a gym, or I look in and people are sitting on their phones in between set, and so you're not there mentally.
You're not. And if you think about it, when we're driving, right, we're listening to the radio, or now we have podcasts, we can plug in our phones, we can do all these things. So I think there's very few times where you're like, I'm just going to focus on me. And like you said, it's not even like I'm going to focus on getting my body jacked. It's just like I'm going to focus on sweating out all the bad that's happening in my life, or I'm going to run on the treadmill and I'm going to think back on everything that's bothering me right now. And that's actually something where I feel like I'll be guilty of that habit of not wanting to go to the gym. I'm like, what am I doing? This is so much better for my mental health. Like, it's not even because I want to fit in a smaller size of jean. It's like because I'll go home and I'm going to feel great inside. And people don't realize, like, there's chemistry to it, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes just dragging yourself to the gym, like, if I don't want to go, I'll make myself go and say I'm just going to do the treadmill. And then often I'll start on the treadmill and then I'll go lift my weights, because it's just put me in that right mindset. And then I do want to be there, and I do want to clear my head.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just a really fascinating thing that you just said, that when I'm struggling to go to the gym. So it's important for a lot of people to note that even people who love the gym, who seemingly go to the gym, struggle to find that motivation, or just have that thought where they're like, I don't feel like it today.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be as simple as, like, if you're having a good hair day and then you're supposed to go to the gym, like, it's just annoying,
Oh.
And sometimes it's just that simple. You're like, I really don't want to go sweat my face off because, like, I have makeup on, or my hair's done, or I have something later. And I think that's why it's important to be flexible. Like, today I had planned to go to the gym at 1, and I was like stalling going. And I was like, okay, I'm just not going to go, because I'm being so productive on right now, just stalling. And I was like, I'll just go after this podcast tonight if I still feel like it. And if I don't, it's fine. Like, it's Monday, I still have time. And I think just making sure you're getting into the gym a certain amount of days of the week, whatever that is for you, you have to let yourself be flexible. Like, sometimes, like we talked about, it's mental. Sometimes it's not going to be good for you, because I had so many other things going on in my mind that I knew I wouldn't be able to really get that benefit that I normally get from it.
I find that fascinating. You said what it is for you, the right amount for you. So, because I don't have to tell you that the fitness world is just so, the science is improving every day, which is great, but it's not there. Like, everyone is kind of all over the place with which is right, which is good, and you don't know what to follow. So I find it that you're flexible, whereas my aspect from it is like, I'm not really flexible. Like, I need to go right after work, because that's the time I'm going to go, and I built that kind of into my work day, quote unquote. Yeah. But it's just important for everyone to realize that it's you. It's a fitness expert can point you in the right direction, but at the end of the day, it's what's right for you, and it doesn't matter what it could be, because there's people who are like, no, I'll run a marathon a day and then I'll go lift weights.
Right. No matter how I'm feeling.
Yeah, and they're like, you can get over it, and they're like, they pump, and whatever, like, that works for people, and sometimes that motivates people. And then other times, I don't think I don't know, you might disagree, but I don't think there's a right or wrong approach to it.
No, I think at the end of the day, it's important for our health, right? And I think where a lot of people fall into the problem is January 1st comes and they're like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. And when you're not going to the gym, to then add 5 days a week, that's ridiculously hard to achieve, right? And that's why people fall off so quickly. But they have this idea that that's fitness and you can't do anything less, right? And something, I forget who I was listening to that talked about it with goal setting, but they were saying, if you've never gone to the gym and then you set a goal of once a week, you're going to go 52 times more than you've ever gone. Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
But instead, we try to multiply that by 5, like, each week, right? So I think it's really important, like, ease yourself into it. If it's going to the gym once and just getting on the treadmill and watching people lift weight until you feel comfortable to go pick up a dumbbell, that's fine because that's something you weren't doing before, right?
Yeah, it's all about the mindset.
Yeah.
For you, like, how often do you try to get there on your own for like a good overall being? Yeah,
so I usually aim for 4 workouts, maybe one day of just cardio, and then I have an optional 5th workout.
Okay.
But it's funny, so this group program I was talking about, so we did the 6 weeks free, and now we actually have a membership base where it's $20 a month. And there's 2 different programs, and I actually started that to keep myself accountable.
Oh, okay.
Because I was getting to that point where I wasn't training for competitions. So I would often be like, I'll go later. And then later comes and it's like, well, I'm in a really good groove with this work, or I could also get this project done if I don't go. So I would keep procrastinating, and I was ending up in the gym 2 to 3 times, which is fine. But when I was 5 to 6 before, it was a big change, right? So I was like, you know what? I feel like other people feel this way, so I'm going to create something. And inadvertently, it's going to make me go to the gym, because sometimes you do need that push where I do enjoy it, and sometimes I just need to suck it up and go. There's being flexible, and then there's being lazy, right?
Yeah.
So that's been really, really helpful for me, is knowing that no matter what happens, I have to do those 4 days because other people are counting on me to do it, or we're sharing that experience together, which is where, like, having a buddy can be really great. Within, like, the first week of that program, when we did the free one, so many people were saying, I've gone to the gym more this week than I have all along, just because they had that motivation, they had that little sense of accountability.
Yeah. So on this program, do you have to be in a gym to do it, or is there more calisthenic body weight stuff?
Yeah. So right now, the way we have one that's called power building. So it's a little bit of powerlifting, but mostly like bodybuilding kind of movements. And then we have a strength one. So for the people that were really enjoying the powerlifting components and, like the deadlift, the squat, and the bench, we created a second program they can run that's more focused on those strength ones and more about strength. And the power building is a little bit of strength with leaning out. And we are creating an at-home one. And that one's probably going to be something where it's just available. Someone can buy it, and it's got a whole bunch of different workouts so that you can do and learn those movements and combine them. Because that's something we found too, is a lot of people either can't get to the gym all the time, or can't do a gym membership at this time, or they have toddlers and their toddlers are napping and they have this free time, but they can't leave to the gym. So that's something we've been working on. Actually, we've tested like 2 weeks of the program, so we're going to be rolling that one out for sure.
Who are you working on with?
Yeah, so I'm working on it with actually my old powerlifting coach. His name is Justin Reeson. He's from Ottawa, but he's coached internationally with a lot of the Team Canada athletes as well. So he's really great in balancing that mindset component and works with a lot of female athletes. So we partnered up because I knew his training style, and what's been really fun is taking his training style and then my input of how I like to train, because a lot of the people were my followers, right? So they see the workouts that I was posting when I was just doing my own thing. So we're kind of taking the best of both worlds and putting it together, and it's been really, really fun so far.
I mean, one of my biggest critiques of the fitness industry is that it's a little inaccessible in terms of it's expensive. Like, even, I have a full-time job and I still can't exactly afford it. So, people make do, and that's great. But just to point that out, and this isn't even like a commercial promotion thing, but like that's, professional Olympic Canadian level training for $20.
$20 a month. Yeah,
I mean,
it's $5 a week.
Yeah, like that's actually like. And have you saw like, how did the free one go? Did you see a lot of engagement? People really got into it.
Yeah,
and
it was
working?
Really, really cool. Like, you never know. Sometimes those things can kind of flatline after a week, but it was so fun. Like, we have a Facebook group for a little private community, and it started out with myself posting, obviously, to create engagement, but very quickly, like, people were posting selfies, they were posting deadlift videos, they were like, oh my gosh, I PR'd this lift, or people were like, I'm squeezing in an extra day because I'm going on vacation next week, and they were just so excited to have similar people to share it with. So that's been really fun. And it's really cool to see, like, there's been a few people that actually met someone at the gym because they saw
the same thing.
Yeah, they saw them doing the same workout, and they were like, "Are you doing this program?"
Oh,
they were
fun.
like, "Yeah, are you?" So people even made friends in their gym, which is cool.
That's what you want. Like fitness, you know, when you really get into it, it does become like a team aspect, and like you said, a community where not only you're holding each other accountable, but like, there's friendships, there's bonds.
Yeah, you can share your wins.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Complain about your losses.
One of the fascinating things about this, and I keep using that term, but not only are you doing this all, but you're also like a woman doing this.
Right.
Do you find resistance to that at all, or has it been mostly pretty welcoming so far?
Yeah, no, it's been really great. Obviously, women respond really well to it. I always say I've been fortunate, but I also think it's kind of the vibe you put out is what you get. And I actually do not deal with, like, I've had very few haters online or troll comments or even inappropriate inbox messages. I think it's very much like I am clear with who I am. And I have some really cool dudes doing the program, which I thought was really cool. Like we had one guy, he's like 40 in Australia, and he was posting all the selfies. Like he was having a great time with it.
So it's global.
Oh, yeah.
It's
It's
awesome.
been really fun. Like we actually ran into a few things where we had to start releasing the program earlier because there were some people in Singapore and Vietnam.
They're waking
and
up in the morning.
They were like,
Come on.
it's already Sunday for me. So I'm like, okay, I'll watch it Saturdays. But yeah, it's been really fun. There's guys in it too. All of my boyfriend's friends did the free program, and they were surprised by how much it kicked their butt.
Yeah.
So no, it's been really good. I think when you put out honestly just who you truly are, people respect it, and I think that goes beyond genders.
Yeah. One of the jokes I make, but it's kind of true, is I want to make it to be so famous that people hate me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, you've actually made some sort of a difference when people start like throwing shade or something at you.
Yeah, we definitely had it with our business a few times, and then our photographer would say like, "Oh, I can't wait till my first hater," and I'm always like, "No, just wait. It's okay. Like that's what you think until it happens."
And then it's
like,
covering it. Oh, man.
Yeah.
One of the so, you know, being a woman in the fitness industry, and especially lifting weights, and I definitely see this perception changing, but I think for a lot of people it's the old quote, you know, lifting weights makes you manly.
Yeah.
Are you, you know, from what I've seen, that like there's a lot of women getting into powerlifting or just lifting in general and hitting weights now, and being okay with being stronger and, you know, being a little like broader shoulders and stuff, big back. But, you know, is this more of a recent phenomenon? Have you seen it grow as you've been involved? Is it finally shifting away that I can never remember his name, the power lifter in the early 2000s who won a whole bunch of, anyways, not important, I'll remember it eventually, but you know, that used to be powerlifting. It's these big bulky guys.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of how we started our apparel brand. Was we felt like there was this new generation of powerlifters, and people had this perception of powerlifters as bald, bearded, tattoos, like big scary guys. And then there was all of us coming in. We really weren't like that. We were like minimalists. We were, you know, passionate about giving back. We were a very different aesthetic, and that was really what inspired it, because we didn't feel represented in the community. And I definitely think a lot of it just comes from an education standpoint too, right? Like even at that point, it was like people were just learning what powerlifting was and better understanding it. And they were like, oh, I actually do want to do this, and it's not so scary. And so there's that. And I think the same thing with this whole like toned versus bulky concept. I think it all comes down to like with fitness and health, we're slowly learning things almost at an embarrassing rate, right? And I when it comes to that issue, I don't get overly upset about it, only in that I know it's an education issue. I don't think that people understand that they'll see a woman that looks one way and they don't know that she lifted weights to get that way. They think she must have done cardio, right? And I think you can't really blame people for what they don't know. But I definitely think we're just starting to educate people more. We're seeing more women who are opening up, right, on social media platforms saying, this is how I train and this is what I look like. And I think people are also just, you know, a long time ago, men did all the athletic things and women didn't. And I think that's where that whole misconception came from, that it makes women look manly, because muscles were manly at one point. And I don't think it's wrong to admit that history was that way. And I think that's all that it is we're shifting away from that. And we're seeing bodies where muscles are beautiful on women, right? It's super empowering for women. You get amazing curves going to the gym, and people don't necessarily know that. And I think it's just bringing light to that, which a lot of women have been really great in doing these days. And I know for myself, even I get messages often where people like to follow me because I'm close to their body, which I've always thought was like an odd comment. Because like you talk about, there's people who they're hashtag goals, right? Yeah. But you also have to understand that like you could train until you have like 2% body fat, and you may not look like that person, because we do, at the end of the day, we have different things going on under there. So I think that's it too. Like we're seeing a lot more diverse women. Before it was like just one female bodybuilder and we only saw that body. And now we're seeing all the different ways that women can be fit, and they can be curvy in different ways and fit in different ways. And it's all beautiful.
Is there any worry with powerlifting? Because I was always under the perception that it was kind of bad for you in the long term.
Yeah, I think it all depends on your training style. So a lot of people, you know, they just go too hard and they get like too focused on like increasing their total, like so the weights that they're lifting each year. Excuse me. I know people who have been powerlifting like over 25 years now, and they're in great shape. And they're healthy. They don't have any problems. So I think it really has to do with like anything, right? If you're going to go into it and be really intense and not take care of your body, you definitely need to put in extra time to warm up, to go to your physio sessions, to get chiropractic work done, all those things. You just have to make sure you're countering it.
That's a big thing. What do you do for recovery? Because this has been like a huge thing for me. It's like now I can go to the gym, I can figure it all out. I'm getting stronger and bigger, but like the level of like soreness or pain or whatever from it is just it's hard to manage, and you know you only get so much benefits too, especially. So what are the type of things that you do to, or have heard, because I know you're very involved with you know people who train professionally, that they do for certain types of recovery that seem to really work well?
I think the biggest thing is actually time management. So when you start going to the gym 5 days a week, you're not accounting for necessarily warming up before your workouts. You're not accounting for maybe having a foam roller at home and rolling out before bed, maybe having a bath once a week. So that's what I found was where, for myself, I kind of moved away from powerlifting, was because I was getting so busy that I was just doing my workouts. And I wasn't doing the same, like, 20-minute warm-up for squats. I was just kind of like swinging my leg and being like, yeah, I'm good, and squatting. And that's what people have to take in, is if you're working out a certain amount of days a week, like make sure you're accounting for that time to warm up. Maybe start with shorter workouts so that you do have time to properly warm up and stretch a little after. So I think that is the biggest component. That's where people get the most injuries, is because they're not actually taking care in that process. Definitely outside of that, like chiropractors are great. They actually do a lot more than you think. I've definitely learned that through sport. I think a lot of people think they're just going to like crack your back into place. But there's a lot of different things you can do with that. And there's a lot of like self tools now where you can get them on Amazon, and you know there's different type of like lacrosse balls, stuff like that. And I think YouTube's a great resource. Like you can find so much stuff from so many credible people. But I definitely think it's actually just like paying attention to that process. Warm up before your sets. Don't just like start running on the treadmill, right? Like walk for 5 whole minutes before you start running, that kind of stuff.
You freaked me out with a 20-minute warm-up to do squats.
Yeah, so that's kind of like where and that's what I'm saying, right? So with powerlifting, like that's what a lot of people do, and that's the healthiest ones, because they're putting in that time. And that's where people start to fall apart, is either they're young and think they don't need it, so they're just going right into it. Those were some long workouts.
Oh my goodness. Do you do like, so what do you do at home? Like, so you foam roller, is there anything in particular? I know like some people do try, there's like cupping now. I know I saw that was big with the Olympics a couple years ago. I've heard sauna therapy or not chiropractic. cryotherapy.
Oh, cryo, yeah.
Yeah. Have you tried any of that? Anything that works over the other?
I haven't done much of those. So my biggest, if I was going, like if I have a problem that's going on and I can't fix it myself, I actually go to a chiropractor, and we usually do like a neurofunctional acupuncture. So it's acupuncture, and then they attach something to it that makes them vibrate, so to speak. So think of like if your muscle was twitching, it's making your muscle twitch. So it's a really weird feeling because you sit there for 15 minutes and like normally you would want to like get it out, right? But you just sit there, and it's basically showing your body to remember how to use that muscle. And that's been the most effective for me.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. And I love my chiropractor too. Her name's Joanna Taylor, and she's actually another female business owner. She owns a business called Kinetic Edge. She's really awesome because she'll do like 3 different styles of treatment in one appointment, and then it actually helps it go away for me. That's what I found, because sometimes with massage, there's so many different types of massage, right? You just have to make sure you're going to sport-focused people. That's the biggest thing it comes down to, because they understand that you might need to be back in the gym tomorrow for training, and they can work around that. And they can show you things that you can be doing at home that'll help along the way. But definitely chiropractor for my treatments is what I do.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a guy I just started following on Instagram. His name's Vinny Rehab, I think.
Oh yeah, Vinny's my friend.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh he's
He's really cool. I
see the things he do. I'm like, but like I love it because like not only is he showing like what he does, but he does like shows stretches and stuff, and like these little short videos. So I'm like sitting there, I'm like raising my arms, I'm like,
oh totally. Yeah. And he's really, really great. Like he always says, he's like, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm just putting information into actual consumable pieces of content, which is really big. Yeah, like there's so much stuff if you just search online or on Instagram now where there's people like him that are just giving away that free information, right? And it's just before now it's been like in textbooks or like by some old guy talking in a lecture for 3 hours. So they're just bringing that information and making it more consumable.
So shifting away a little bit from the fitness, because I want to transition to a little bit of the business side, but perfect segue. So we talked before, because now as I'm starting to learn and interview people, especially business owners or people who also give content, it's that balance of, you know, what am I going to give away for free for, whether it's marketing, branding or whatever, or, you know, what am I going to keep to myself so people don't just do it at home, they'll come to me and pay me to use it. Like, I mean, you're in the community, like, how do you strike that balance? Like, how are people trying to find the way to grow their business, but also...
Yeah, I think it's being confident in what you offer, and it comes down to actually having a strong offering, which is also interesting in this Instagram world, because a lot of people are selling things that they might not be qualified to sell when it comes down to it, right? So for me, like, I'll pretty much put anything online, because I know that if I work with a brand, they're getting a full experience. I'm giving them advice that's specific to that brand, because a lot of this stuff can be applied to anyone. But at the end of the day, you need to sit down with your own strategy. So I can tell you to do something, but you still have to look at how that applies to your business. And I think same with the chiropractors. Vinny's a great example, because he was one of the ones that was leading that concept of putting all this content out there, right? And saying like, this is how to fix it yourself. But you can also only do so much yourself, right? So he's helping you for the student on a budget who can't go to a chiropractor. They can do these things and it's going to help. But for people with real problems, like, I don't know if you've seen some of his videos, like he's helped people walk who like can't walk. Yeah, like there's been some crazy transformations, and it's because he knows what he's doing, right? I think that's what it comes down to, is if you're confident in what you can offer and that you can go above and beyond that free content, to me, nothing's really off the table. Interesting.
So you started this business when you were 21, 22, I believe?
Yeah, sure. That sounds right.
Yeah? What was that like? So, you know, as a young person, not owning my business, but business myself, commanding respect, showing people you're confident, getting an audience with them, just, you know, being a young person is a challenge on itself. I had myself to, you know, I had a paycheck to rely on, because whether I got an audience, I was sitting there working still. You have to get that. Yeah. What's that like? What was that like for you when you started? What's that like now?
Yeah. I'm lucky in a way. I always kind of credit my parents for that, because they were a really good balance of like giving me a hard time, but also letting me know I can do anything that I want to do. And I always say, like, early on in my career, I had blinders on, which sounds like a bad idea, but it was actually really great for me. Like the whole concept of a glass ceiling, or this concept of being treated differently for being a woman in the workplace. I definitely did end up experiencing stuff like that, but I was just so set in my way that it was not going to be a problem for me, that I guess I kind of saw those things like in passing. In hindsight, I can recognize them, but I was just so confident in who I was and what I could offer to any company, whether that was when I was working for someone or building something on my own. And so I do think I was really lucky to have that confidence, because I know a lot of people don't come by that naturally. And I think that's what's helped me a lot is like, you could all tell me that I can't do it. I'm like, that's fine, because you just don't know. I'm going to go do it. Yeah. And I've never really had a problem. Like before this, I worked in very corporate spaces, so it was a lot of older men, and I never really backed down. And, you know, there was like jokes kind of about it, of like how it's funny I was like this little girl but not afraid to speak up. And to me it was like, well, my opinion is the same worth as yours. And so I think being an entrepreneur, you just kind of have to build that confidence and find where you're most confident, whether that's in your marketing or like maybe you have a specific skill set. Like if you're a graphic designer, you might not be confident in your business negotiations, but be so confident in your skill set in your graphic design that will be what sells it. Yeah. So it's really just finding that way to be confident, I think.
Okay. Do you have people that inspired you, that helped guide you, that really like set you on that right path? Because obviously being an entrepreneur, you pretty much learn everything from scratch, right? Like everything is completely unique to your situation. Like, how did you find that guidance with, is it other entrepreneurs like are very helpful with each other? Because at the end of the day, sometimes it would seem like you're a competing business depending on what your product is.
No, for the most part, like even businesses that are also lifestyle t-shirt companies in the strength niche have helped us. So like entrepreneurs I find 9 out of 10 are really great people and have amazingly good intentions, and they believe that there's room for everyone to have a piece of the pie. And again, I think that comes from being so confident that your product is going to be fine even if you give this person a piece of your advice. We had trouble once even shipping product to the US, and we had met this guy once for dinner that owns another clothing company, and he offered to print for us so that we could get our like print our product in the States for us. And so people are really willing to help. I think entrepreneurship can also be really lonely, so people like going for coffee and talking. So we have lots of friends that are also entrepreneurs, and it definitely helps. And I think Lewis Howes talks about this a bit, building yourself a team of mentors in different areas. So you should always have someone who can advise you from a financial perspective. Always have someone who's in your same industry, and finding these different mentors, because it's really hard to find one that fits all those boxes. But you'd be surprised where you come across them. So one of our best mentors was Josh's professor in university at Carleton. And we went to dinner with him and his family. We'll go for coffee with him. We were going through one business struggle last summer, and he was in the UK with his kids at a zoo, and we called him and he walked us through it. Oh wow. So it's really cool when you can find those people, but it's also important just to absorb little bits from everyone, because that's what I found most useful, because everyone's always hunting for that mentor, right? We did a lot of startup programs where you get promised a mentor, and because we're in Ottawa with a product and most people are tech, it was always hard to find us a mentor. We would get so disappointed, but instead we just started reaching out to people and getting a little bit of info from this guy. This guy's really good at Facebook ads, so we're going to learn everything we need to know from Facebook ads from him. This guy's built 6 businesses, so he knows how to build and sell. So just kind of taking a piece from everyone. Okay, because that was going to be my next question. How do you find a mentor? Because it doesn't just apply to entrepreneurs. Everybody, I think, could have totally. A mentor in different parts of your life. Is it as simple as just sliding into the DMs, or is it, you mentioned startups, is it more you're looking at it more from a professional angle at networking or is it how has that experience been for you? Yeah, I think the best mentorships are relationships that develop naturally. So it's hard because social media can be one-sided in a way. So if I have a follower who really relates to me, they can reach out to me as a mentor, but I don't know that I'll click with them. But if you are on social media, like someone like myself who's putting so much of myself out there, if you feel like we would totally jive and like I would be a great mentor, then definitely like reach out to someone like me. It's harder with something like LinkedIn where it might be just, you know, a photo in their bio and you're like, oh, this sounds like someone who has a similar career to what I want. And then you reach out and you meet up and you're both like totally different people, right? So I think it's just kind of finding those people that click. And I think more often than not, at least in my experience, it ends up being peers more than mentors. And I think you can really learn from each other. Like we were in Texas last month and I met this one girl through a mutual friend and we've like FaceTimed 4 times since and just kind of talked out some business ideas. And yeah, it doesn't always have to be someone that far ahead of you. Sometimes it can be someone where you're ahead in some areas and they're ahead in others and you're just bouncing information. Okay.
Is there, like, if it's with your peers, like, do you guys also search for, like, opportunities to, like, collaborations? Like, how can, you know, we work together possibly, even if you're, like, maybe competing? Like, just trying to get, I mean, from my sense of business negotiation, it's very easy. It's like, okay, I have a product, I'm trying to sell it to you, There's not a whole lot of back and forth, like you can help me here, but I can help you here. It's very like kind of one-sided in each way. So how does it work? Like someone just freewheeling, just trying to create opportunities in business and figure it out. Like how do those kind of conversations go?
I think it's totally personality based, right? Because some people they like hoard their business ideas and they don't want to help someone out if it's a similar product. We're very collaborative. Like I will go out of my way and kind of inconvenience myself or make more work if it means like an opportunity for someone else sometimes. We hosted an after party, actually, LVD did in Ottawa recently because Powerlifting Nationals was here. And I purposely partnered with other brands to be on all the posters and all that stuff. And every single one of those, besides Bo's beer, was smaller than us. So that's not really that beneficial to us. But I knew that for them to be on this formal event, to be able to say like, hey, we were part of this was really big for them. And for me, it wasn't a loss to put them on a poster and to promote them, right? Yeah. So I think it really depends. And I think when you start acting that way, other people do it right back. So we do a lot of like joint giveaways. We've done collaborations with other brands. And I think it also tells your audience like who you are. So when we've collaborated with brands that could have been our like head-to-head competitors, our audience actually loves it. And they're like, we think it's so cool on both of your ends that you guys were willing to do that. And more than willing, like you sat down, you designed a product together, you market it. So I think it just kind of speaks to who you actually are fundamentally.
This might seem like a silly question, but I just want to ask, do you consider yourself a quote-unquote influencer?
No. Well, I have a problem with that word because like my mom is an influencer because she has influence over me. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That's where the word comes from. Yeah. Like a teacher is an influencer. So do I feel that I have influence? Yes, because I can speak to products or I can do X and I know that people will buy those products if I genuinely give a real review because I've been transparent. I hate the word. I saw a quote that was like, anyone who calls them an influencer, like it's a red flag that they're not an influencer. So I think on a fundamental level, it's like, do I have influence? I believe so, because I'm so transparent and open. But yeah, I hate that word.
I like content creator much better.
Yeah.
Creating content.
But even for, I'm so on that one because I think for some people it works. Like if you do a YouTube series and it's like beauty hacks, you are creating content. Whereas like I'm mostly just sharing things people have told me, you know, and like I'm sharing like my gym PR. So I don't feel that I'm creating content necessary. In a way, but. Yeah. Like I believe content creator is a good term, but that I'm not one. Well, that makes sense.
I mean, you're offering content that like you've stood up and like it's ownership of you in a way because it's coming from you. And that's really I guess now that you put it that way, what I mean? I'm kind of like
like if I was making a YouTube series, I would be a content creator.
Well, I mean, you're successful on YouTube. Have you thought of expanding into other areas, or like you pretty much like your plate is pretty full with the amount of things that you've taken on?
No, I'm probably going to be stepping up my YouTube actually. Like it's one of those ones where like we have decent subscribers that grow when we're not posting, and I have like some videos that I've done. Like I did a legging review and I did a shorts review where I got like the leggings in hindsight was exhausting because I got like 16 pairs. And the way that I did the video, I had to put them all on 3 times each. And I'm a very like hot and sweaty person. But yeah, so I did those videos and like those ones combined have like over 20K views.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I think part of that, like I said, it's the honesty. Like I literally talked about muffin top and like camel toe. And I was just like straight up, these are the shorts that give it. These are the ones that don't.
It's good to know. And that's not coming in a commercial.
Right. And that's the thing that people actually want to know. And that comes back down to that body aspect is like, I know even companies that sometimes will go up to like 2XL. They release a sizing video and they're like, oh, she's wearing extra small and she's wearing small. And I'm like, okay, that's not really helpful for the average person, right? When they're both probably like size 0 and size 2. So I definitely feel like there's a lack of that quote unquote more regular person that's not the super fit athlete. And I know that's where I've been very helpful with people so far. I actually recently partnered with Lululemon. So I've been working with them and same thing. It's been an interesting experience to be able to tell people like what sizes I'm wearing, how certain things fit, even giving that product feedback back to Lululemon. Like, I love these shorts, but they're not made for my body. And if you guys could make a pair that fit my body, like I know people would buy them. Yeah. So there's definitely opportunities there, but yeah, one step at a time.
Yeah. I find this is something that's been coming over me as someone who like works in marketing and is looking to market my product. The kind of the transformation of real people as a marketing vessel. So like you said, you partnered with Lululemon, whereas Lululemon would have went and made a traditional advertisement.
Right.
What has that experience been like for you? Like, are you just kind of sitting there one day and all of a sudden you get a DM? Like, does it go professional, like email? Like, or even maybe yourself as a business owner, when you're looking to find someone to market your product in a very personal way, like how does that process go about? Like, how do you narrow it down?
So it definitely varies. Like, so I'll give you another example. I also work with Good Life Fitness.
Okay.
So I'm sponsored by Good Life. And in that situation, you know, I always prefer the professional route because I want to show that I'm pitching something professionally. And I'm not just like, hey, can you give me a free gym membership? I'll post a photo. So I looked for the right contact online and I wasn't really having luck finding it. And the great thing about social teams is they're fast, right?
Yeah.
So those people are on top of the digital age. So I DM them, but instead of pitching in the DMs, I essentially said like, hey, I think we have some opportunities to partner. I was wondering like who would be the best person to reach out to. If you'd be able to give me their email, that would be great. And that always goes over really well because also DMs are very invasive. Like as a business owner in fitness, you get a lot of requests for sponsored athletes. And to me, it's like, I don't want to deal with that on my DMs. My DMs is to say like, oh, that looks great on you to people. So always going that professional route and like showing, like when people show what they can value, you would be surprised how many people pitch to you. And it's just about why it would benefit them. Like, I'm a broke college student. Can you sponsor me?
Yeah.
And I'm like, buddy, you got to learn to like at least pretend there's something in it for us, right? So I think if people are trying to pitch, that's the biggest thing is treat it professionally because it is a professional thing. Like people who are being paid to post, treat it professionally. And actually know your worth and pitch your worth and pitch what you're going to do. Don't just say like, can I have free stuff?
Yeah. How do you find your worth though when you're just a person, right? Like you don't have a rate. You don't have a rate card. You don't have a...
You wing it the first time.
Really, eh?
Yeah. So...
Oh, man, she went for it.
My very first paid post was with Uber Eats Canada. And it's funny, like, I still don't do enough of it. Like, I remember every moment that someone has reached out to me that was, like, a cool one, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I had actually hurt my back at the gym to the point... Well, actually, it wasn't at the gym. It was, like, this progressing problem. But got to the point where I couldn't really move. And Josh and I were sitting in an ER, and I was in so much pain that I was laying on the dirty floor on my jacket. And I was crying because I had got in trouble for laying on the floor. And they did not understand that, like, it hurt to sit. So I'm laying there crying, and then it's like, Uber Eats has emailed you. And I'm like, oh. Yeah, so it was, like, a really weird feeling. They reached out to me via email. most of the ones I've gotten has been through email. Most companies now, because like this whole influencer marketing has become a thing, most actually work with a marketing agency. So I've never directly spoken to Uber Eats.
Right.
It's always been a marketing agency. Same with any of the ones that I've done for paid posts for the most part. I don't work with directly. I do work with a skincare company. I work with them directly because they have a pretty strong marketing team. They don't reach out to a third party. And a lot of them are connections too. So that one, they were looking to expand in Canada, like I think over a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now. And I had a mutual friend with someone that worked there, and she was one of their influencers in the States. And she was like, I know a great person in Canada. So sometimes it just happens really naturally. Lululemon was a weird one. Like the store at Bayshore had actually reached out to me, and we were starting to partner on like a store level. And then literally on my trip to Texas recently, when I was flying back, like Lululemon just DM'd me. Like they literally slid into my DMs. So it's different, right? But they're also Lululemon and they can do that. So I wouldn't say go DM Lululemon, but if they want to DM me, like that's cool,
for sure,
you know? So it's definitely like case by case, but I like to treat it as professionally as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just when you're not starting, just like do you throw out an amount like I'll do it for 5,000.
I wish that much, but literally the first time. So with the Uber Eats one, I did reach out to someone who I knew that did more paid content, and I was like, what would you think I was worth for a post? And for some reason we just had the same number in our head, and I just put it out there. And that's the hard thing too with the influencer thing. I think there's a really wide variety in numbers. I've heard some crazy numbers with like the huge ones.
I've heard like Kylie Jenner's like in the millions. Ridiculous, or upward 100,000.
Basically my rates too. So it is kind of tough because you are just throwing it out there. And you can kind of try to value it, like, especially it's different if you're doing photo shoots for your content versus like if it's a cell phone photo. But you just kind of throw it out there and you just kind of gauge how they react. Like that one, they were like cool right away. And my first reaction was like, I probably should have went higher, you know, but you have no idea. Maybe if I went $50 higher, they would have said no. And I've just kind of slowly inched my prices a little bit higher since then. But I also think you gauge it based off the client. Like for me, I was like, okay, Uber Eats is pretty cool. Like I'm going to do whatever. If they asked me to do it for free, I'd probably do it for free.
Just for the credibility.
Exactly. Like that's something that can be on my website forever. So definitely like gauging it and also making sure, I think people like to think like, oh, I'm going to get as much out of this as possible. But I also want to be confident in that they will get return on it, because then people like that come back to you if you charged a reasonable rate and then exceeded their expectations with the performance. And that's usually how I like to do it. Business 101, everybody.
What are your thoughts on branded content as somebody who, you know, you pride yourself on coming through as like a authentic representation of yourself? When you have branded content, I think, you know, some people, I've seen it on some, you know, sell out or something like that, or like, how do you
like sponsored content?
Like, exactly. When someone's paying you to post something, how do you strike a balance? Because, you know, if you're super popular, like I could assume like almost all of your content could be some sort of advertisement.
I think it depends, because I've definitely seen bloggers where they're like that. But it's different because if someone's, say, a beauty or fashion blogger, if people, all they want from them is product recommendations, then, like, sure, get paid for every post. Like, you know, get that money. But for me, I really try to balance not doing it very often. And I think that's a value add for the partners I do work with because it comes off as way more authentic. So it's just not having it too often and finding a way that the content can still be mine. So, like, I've worked with Panago Pizza, for example, and I've always, like, the posts have been, like, about nutrition. And I get to write my lengthy post about nutrition and then plug their pizza, and they're cool with that. So it's, like, getting that balance where it's still, like, organic in your content is really important. And then I think also just being transparent. Like, obviously, legally, you do have to do things like show that it's an ad. But recently I did some stories, and I talked about specific, like, so some partners I get a commission if people buy through my link or my code. And I just did a couple stories, and I was like, hey, so this is what I get with Lulu. This is what I get with Tula. I don't get anything with this person, but you can use that code. And I got so many responses to that where people were just like, I really appreciate your transparency. And I think for a while, we went through this in-between phase. So I actually have a journalism degree.
Yes,
so we went through this
right.
phase where there was some drama with journalism because we started to have this sponsored articles, you know? And I think at the beginning it was sketchy, especially early days, Instagram with the Kardashians. Like, it wasn't obvious that
Fire
it was
Festival.
ads. Yeah, like now people know that that's a thing, which helps a lot. But I think also being transparent, like with the Lululemon, when I talked about my commission, like people were like, I'm going to save your link and use it every time I shop because like I like what you do and you might as well make money if I'm going to shop there anyway. So sometimes being transparent about it is actually better in the end for me. Like if I didn't say it, they'll probably just go to their computer and open up Lulu, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just being transparent about it and keeping that content real.
How did you cultivate this audience? Like, when did you really start to see a transition in your personal page that was like all of a sudden like, this is really something. People are responding. I'm having meaningful connections now. Like my followers are going through the roof. Like, how did that start? Because I can assume no one just gets on. I'm sure now, but back in our day when we started Instagram, it wasn't like I'm gonna be this famous Instagram person, right? Like,
yeah. No, it was really cool. Like I jokingly use the term accidental influencer because that's kind of how it is for me. Like. Like when I got asked to do a paid post, I was like, oh, yes, my rates. Like, you know. But honestly, like what's really cool with small businesses is everybody wanted to know who was behind LVD. And fitness has a lot of couples, right? So we didn't want it to be like, oh, this is all photos of me and my boyfriend. So like all of our photos weren't us. We had like an About Us section on the website that showed it was us. And when we went to events, it was always us. But we never really put it out there that much. But people were just so hungry for that. Like they wanted to know the brand story. They wanted to know what kind of people were creating this really cool thing. And that's kind of how it started. And then especially it was definitely timing too, I think. It was at a time where a lot more women were getting into powerlifting. So there was that element of like, oh, this girl's doing it. Again, she's a bit of a different body type than usual. And I think just I've always been open from the beginning. Even with the powerlifting, I would talk about if lifting days were really hard and just being that authentic self. And then the fact that we were at so many events and people were meeting us and that I was the same person, that's always been a really big thing. Because I know I have met people who are not the same. And I know a lot of people have talked about that, like, because they're surprised when they meet me that I'm the same thing just without a camera in front of my face. But I think honestly that's been the biggest thing. And yeah, timing more than anything and just being open and transparent.
Do you think that's an important thing for brands to do in this new age, this digital age where I find a lot of millennials and especially Generation Z they're not, the status quo isn't good enough for them in many aspects, but in terms of what they want from a company. I mean, even when I'm interviewing people for jobs, that's actually a question I ask now is, like, what do you look for in a brand that, like, to make a decision on whether it's something you listen to or something you purchase, whatever it is. Do you see that now as you're giving consultations and you're advising businesses, whether it's digitally or in person, like there needs to be some sort of honesty and openness, whereas opposed, like, you know, like what goes on at a bank, I don't know, I put my money in there and it goes away, right? Like,
yeah, I think it's times have changed and people either need to get with it or get left behind. I think social media has given us a lot of powers. The internet alone, right? People can do research on companies and find like these crazy paper trails online, right? But I think like a brand story sells more than it used to. And I think before we got fed very corporate, put together brand stories, like Coca-Cola would write a brand story and pitch it to you kind of. But now it's like, oh, here's two real people from Ottawa, Canada, and this is what they're doing. And they're also dating at the same time. And isn't that an interesting dynamic? And people want to see that side. And I think it's, you know, people talk about how we're like disconnected because we're always on our phones. But I also think on another level, we just want deeper connection, which could be a result or the cause of it. But I think, yeah, people don't want to just wear a t-shirt. They want to know like where that t-shirt was made. They want to know the inspiration behind the design. Like even when we release collections, we'll do blog posts on like where that idea came from, where the whole theme of the collection came from. And it lets people be in on it with you, right? Like someone like Billabong, I don't know why they're releasing the stuff that they're releasing. Whereas like we will name our collections. Last summer we had Evolve when we were really changing our style, and people loved that. And then in the fall we had Momentum, because after you evolve, you pick up Momentum. And just being open about like what those experiences were for us designing the collection has created these relationships that you can't really do otherwise. Like people the other day were posting with our loyalty program, you can see your order history. There was like a little war on like stories where people were like, I've been buying LVD since this date, 2015. And like or people will post the old shirts, right? And they love that shirt because they know the story behind the shirt, and they know that they've been with the story since that point, whereas other people are just coming in on the story now. And I think it's like a really, really great tool. And if people aren't using it, they definitely should be.
Like, I know you said like you had a vision and you were going to get there at one point, but at some level, are you surprised it got to like this point? Do you still look back and go like, people are posting my stuff on their stories fighting about who got it first? Like, is it still sort of surreal?
It's totally surreal. Like anytime you see someone wearing it that you don't know, it's like, that's so weird. Like you get kind of giddy. Like we'll go to the gym and someone's wearing it, and it's this fun element of like, you don't know, not everyone follows the story or like goes deep and looks at us, because like I said, we're not all over the page. Like sometimes I'm like, does that person know who I am? Like, do they know that hat is from my house, or like you know? So it's really cool. Definitely never goes away. Like even when we go to certain events, like if people like run up to me, I'm like looking behind me, like looking for who they're running to, and they're like, no, it's you. Like I'm excited to see you. So that's definitely been really cool. And our friend actually sent us a text. He does vintage stuff, and he was at Value Village, and there was like an old LVD shirt, and he was like, wow, you guys have officially made it.
The full life cycle.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like a funny, like rewarding moment, because it also means like we've been around long enough. Like I've even given away some of my LVD because it's like you can't keep it from 5 years ago. So it's really cool to have like been around that long, even that people have like sized up in our apparel. They've gone from a small to a medium because they've been training in the gym. Like, it's cool to be part of those life cycles now.
Absolutely. What are you most proud about? I mean, haven't even been on this earth, like, you know, what is your proudest accomplished thus far?
It's a really good question. I don't know if I can even like pin it down to like one thing. I think it's honestly probably just like always sticking with my gut. And even when I was younger, like when I quit competing dance, like I went from studio dance to hip hop. Like I knew in my gut when that time was there. Every job I've ever left, like I knew in my gut that it was time for the next thing. And I think I'm proud of sticking to that, because I could be sitting like, one of my first jobs out of school was very corporate. I had better pay than I should have as a new grad, because I actually worked through university, and my boss knew that, so he pushed for me to get a better pay. I had my own office when like maybe a dozen people at the company had an office. But I know that I wouldn't be happy if I was still there, and I'm proud of sticking my gut with that every time, because I know like it's easy to look back and be like, cool, I could probably like have bought a lot of stuff by now. But I'm just proud that I like stuck to it, and I did things that I actually feel like have impact, because I feel like if something happened tomorrow, I can confidently say that I had impact in my life. And I think that's something that for whatever reason is significant to my being, and I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't have that.
Yeah. You're the second guest, so my last guest, she did something in later in her life, but she also worked a full-time government job in national security and dropped everything and went on like a 5-year quest of like understand. Like, it fascinates me. And, you know, this is like, I mean, truth be told, I would love for one day this podcast to blow up and this be my only thing, because as I'm sure when you were starting, you know, to balance something you're truly passionate about, not to say I'm not passionate about my job, but with, you know, a full-time life or a family, it's like, it's hard to balance everything, especially when you're not monetizing your dream yet.
Yeah. And I think that there's a very traditional path that existed, and we're at that weird point where like 8-year-olds are making millions on YouTube, right? Like crazy.
Yeah.
But we're at that point where like paths are going to look really different. And I just think like, I guess if I stayed at a corporate job, I never would have known what it was like to not. But now that I know, like, I just can't go back. And it's something that I really want to help other people do. Like, I want to help people make their side thing their full-time thing, because once you do it and you realize like you can actually experience life in a different way, and it's like you don't have to grind 9 to 5 and then kind of enjoy your weeknights when you're exhausted and think about your job on the weekends when it's not really going to be that impactful for you. Even when I quit my job, my sister went on maternity leave, and just seeing how much time I spent at my sister's house because I could go work from there, because if she needed to shower, I could drop everything and go over so she could shower and not worry about this new baby just sitting there that she brought into the world. Like, it's stuff like that. Or sometimes it gets inconvenient because people think you don't have a job, so you can drop everything all the time, right? But at the same time, being able to do that for people that are important to you, it's just like, I can't imagine not being there for them, you know? Even my mom got pneumonia. I know it's been going around for a lot of people. And one of my sisters lives in Toronto, and she texted me and she's like, can you just go hang out with mom today? Because it would make me feel better because I can't be there. I'm like, you know what? I can't. I threw everything in a backpack and I just went and worked from my parents' house. And it's those little things that are super rewarding.
Absolutely. Where do you want to take this? I'm sure that question, or the answer to that question, changes all the time.
Yeah.
But like right now in this moment, where do you want to take yourself, your brands, your company? Like, what is like you would be able to be like, maybe you're not done, but like this is everything I dreamed of.
Well, it's funny you asked that, because I've spent the last month having like strategy sessions mixed with identity crisis, which is a big part of entrepreneurship too. But honestly, what I've literally like narrowed it down to a statement for you, but I want to help people level up through money, health, and happiness. Because that's what I find when I put it all down on paper, what has changed my life. Fitness and health has changed my life immensely in many different ways. Business and money. I think money, we have this misconception of like, if people want money, they're like evil and dirty and like, oh, it's not, money's not everything, but money comes with a lot of freedoms. And teaching people ways that they can be better with their money, or new ways to make money so you can afford to do those things that you want to do. And then happiness. I feel that a lot of people aren't actually truly happy. And if they did die tomorrow, they would probably have a lot of regrets. And I think there's a lot of pressures to do certain things, and just teaching people that like you can level up in all these little areas, and it's slowly going to build that life that you wanted before you even realize.
So you say level up. What do you like? You mean improve, get better?
Yeah,
or?
Like enhance your life without sounding super cliche. Like to me, it's like, yeah, level up at the gym, or like with nutrition. It's a lot of it is education, right? I didn't know that I could have multiple income streams. Right? You're taught to go get a job and try to get the best paying job. Then when you start to learn about something like multiple income streams, it's life changing, and it changes the way you manage your money. It changes how you live your day-to-day life. And it's something where I feel like through an Instagram post, I could change someone's life by being like, hey, did you know X? Even like side hustles. A lot of people are interested in side hustles, and there's lots of different ways where you can just take these small steps, because people think you have to be like the next Steve Jobs to be an entrepreneur, or you have to like do a bodybuilding show to get into fitness. So I just want to show people that like you can take a little step in each area, and you're just going to find that overall your quality of life is just that much better.
Do you find it particularly challenging to balance? So, I mean, most of us, the 9 to 5, we have a boss or someone accountable. At the end of the day, like the only one really you're accountable is you or your business partner, your clients, of course. But at the end of the day, the puck stops with you. I'll use a hockey term because hockey's on right now. How is that a difficult thing to do, knowing that you're the one at the end of the day accountable for everything, and if you choose not to do something, it's not getting done?
Personally, I don't find it hard. Like, a lot of people ask that. They're like, what does your day look like? I'm like, well, it's the same as if I was doing it at a company. I'm just not doing it at a company, right? For me, I found it less satisfying to have a boss. And, like, I always found it limiting because I had all these great ideas, but it has to go through these big political processes, and then it gets squashed because of some irrelevant reason.
Not in the budget.
Exactly. Whereas like when you're doing it for yourself, like you will find a way to make a budget. And so it's definitely really empowering. I do find like I just make to-do lists my boss. So I need to I am like really, really focused and like Energizer Bunny when I have to-do lists. And the second my to-do list starts to get a little slim, I'm like a lost wanderer and start having an identity crisis. Like it goes from one end to the other. And I think it's just learning yourself. Like that's what I learned is like, as long as I have strong to-do lists, which will be like writing it out the night before or stuff like that, organizing my time well, I just keep myself accountable. It feels the same as having a boss as long as you're giving yourself deadlines. You know, you still know when things have to get done.
Yeah. It's all what you've been doing, and like I said, like at the beginning, it's so interesting to see someone, and especially in Ottawa. I know it seems strange, but usually these opportunities you see on the internet are, and like they're LA, they're New York, they're even Toronto here in Canada. Yeah. Is Ottawa always going to be home? Do you think? Do you like, or do you look for opportunity to expand somewhere else?
No, I've always said, like, if an opportunity took me somewhere else, like, purposefully, I would be open to it. I've never been one that, you know, had to move to Toronto when I graduated. I think for myself and my partner, family is a really big deal, and both of our family is in Ottawa. And to me, that alone makes it home. And I always say, like, you can live in Ottawa and you can go to Toronto every weekend, or you can go to LA, and it might be a little bit more expensive on a plane ticket, but if it means that I'm spending that much more time with my family, I'm cool with that.
So balance is really important for you.
Yeah, and I think it's just like at the end of the day, why are you doing all these things? It's to be with those people, right? Like I want that flexibility. So if my mom's sick, I can go over, or I want to be able on a Saturday night to go to one of Josh's big fam jams. Like I think that's really important.
Yeah. Are there any like readings or books or authors or particular people that, you know, you listen to or you read from, like that gives you good sound advice, that if someone were to be like, you know, listening to this podcast and you're like, Mallory's got me going, I'm going to go do X. Like that is just like a good kind of like a foundation where you could learn a little bit about whatever it is, entrepreneurship or business. I'm sure there's quite a bit, but like what resonates with you?
Definitely the Rich Dad Poor Dad series, if you've heard of that. It's one of those ones, it has a whole bunch of different books, but there's a main one. It's around the whole mindset around finances and business, and the concept is he grew up with an academic father, and then his friend's dad was an entrepreneur, and so he kind of tells the story of growing up with both of those as his dads, both offering conflicting advice, and in the moment not knowing who's right, and in hindsight seeing who was right, so to speak, in certain areas, and who was, you know, obviously the academic has the more traditional path. It was really, really interesting. Like my partner Josh even just got his real estate license basically because of that book.
Oh, wow.
So it's a good one to like flip your life upside down for sure. It's one where you almost have to reread because it's just so out left field of what you expect and what we've been taught, that it takes a while to really understand it. But that's a really, really great series. If you have a business or you're looking to start a business, Profit First is like, again, great business because it's really easy to bleed out your finances and to struggle with cash flow in business. And it basically recreates the formula that you're using to make sure that you always are producing profit, and it helps you cut all the expenses you don't need. I only just read that recently and I was like, wow, I wish we read this like 2 years ago. That's a really, really great one. And I'm like a big book nerd, so I'm trying to pick. Those are really good for like flipping everything you knew upside down.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's a good start.
Yeah.
What's next? What is the immediate projects that is coming up for you?
So immediate right now, the fitness program I was talking about, it's actually called MALMADEMEDOIT. It started almost as like a joke hashtag, and then we just kind of stuck with it. So that's the fitness program, and I'm working right now on transferring that to a new format that'll be really good for going forward, more of a seamless experience after we've done this kind of initial test. So that's my project right now, so that we can fully release and do more of, we've only really soft launched the actual program.
Okay.
So release that. And then I'm actually working on some business courses so that a lot of the consults that I do or questions I receive in my DMs are very similar questions. So trying to put that all pen to paper with another friend of mine, actually. And so that'll kind of be our summer project for two purposes, right? To help teach people this, but passive income sources are not a bad idea.
Yeah. So you'll be giving the course.
Yes.
Like you'll be writing it.
Yeah, so it's going to be an online course. It'll be videos and downloadable stuff, so things like worksheets or checklists, video instructions, whole bunch of different formats for people who learn differently.
Oh, interesting. Okay, where can people find you? Where can people purchase LVD, follow you on...
Yeah, so everything is just my name, Mallory Rowan, and my business is LVD Fitness. So my website's malloryrowan.com, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook is all Mallory Rowan. And same with LVD. Everything is LVD Fitness.
Perfect. And you can follow the Life in Red podcast, Facebook, Instagram, Life in Red podcast, and Twitter, Life in Red Pod. The great, powerful Mallory Rowan, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Bye, everybody.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.